Today's dedication is for Terax, who gave me a very generous 1 year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon. Temmet Noctimune's Will versus Bilbo, Thalia and Gitrog, and Caesar. Some interesting commanders here. Yeah, I like Bilbo and Caesar. This should be an interesting one. A 2-lander with some heavy cards in hand is no good. Into a 3-lander and at least Dreadhorde Invasion. Teferi's Puzzle Box should get us into a decent number of buffs as well, so we'll keep this. Turn 1 Soul's Attendant for the Soul Sisters player. And we get into another black spell in Wilhelt, so go for a black land here. A tap Shockland from Caesar as well, and land tax for Thalia. Going to be able to fetch out the basics, and they are last in the turn order as well. A Severe Land for Bilbo. And the Soul's Attendant whacks the Prison player, we're assuming it is. Well, that fixes our black mana. The Urborg I'll hold off on for as long as possible. We're still missing white at the moment. Play out the Dreadhorde Invasion and start getting zombie tokens next turn. Carney Heart Expedition is landfall, and they'll be able to get more lands on that eventually. Still haven't seen anything from the Mardu deck yet. Bilbo, Birthday Celebrant, the first one to enter play. First commander, that is. Soul's Attendant hits Caesar for 1 this time. And we get our first zombie in exchange for a life, which will gain the Soul's Attendant player a life. And still missing white mana, we can't play the Renewed Solidarity, so instead it will have to be the Urza's Incubator here, I think, and then we can start looking at the tribal zombie creatures. That way next turn we might be able to go for a turn 2 Wilhelt and a Wayward Servant, and maybe it's time to start looking at Teferi's Puzzle Box, depending on the number of cards we have left in hand. Might even be worth doing that next turn. Krenko Tin Street Kingpin is a great means of making tokens in the early game before there's any blockers. The first land played into this. I think they need, 2 more lands played into it and they'll be able to ramp. A Pious Evangel, Wall of Blossoms cantrips and gains a life. Then just holding up 2 mana including a fetch, so we get a plus counter on our token. Decide what we want to do here. Okay, Windfall. Might just have to give up on and go for Teferi's Puzzle Box instead to try and actually get into the white mana we need. So let's go for that. When do you trigger this? It's at the beginning of each player's draw step, so you do draw beforehand, so we'll see 5 new cards next turn. So 7 cards going to be shuffled. Our opponents near enough have their opening hands still, so hopefully we'll get rid of some good cards here. You would assume that they kept good cards in their opening hand. A War Leader's Call is an anthem, and whenever a creature enters, 1 damage to each opponent, which obviously goes well with a token strategy and buffs the Krenko, so this is based on power as opposed to the counters on it. Yeah, so it's already a 2-3, will become a 3-4 with the plus counter, and it is swinging in at us as we assumed it would. So life gained from the Soul's Attendant negates the War Leader's Call, but the other 2 players will take a lightning bolt here. Makes 3, 2-2 goblins, and we'll just take the damage, already down to 31. I suppose, maybe should have blocked there if we're just going to make another one of these anyway. It can just be a chump blocker for the foreseeable. Brawn going to be hard cast by the Abzan player, so once that goes down they do have a forest, so when it's in the bin all their stuff will have trample. And we have a turn 4 scoop from the Caesar player. A Cabal Coffers as soon as we drop the Urborg. That's always the risky run. We've got 2 black players we're up against, so they make 5 black mana immediately with 6 cards in hand. As it happens, we've just drawn them into that with the Teferi's Puzzle Box. A Blood Artist after the token player goes down. A Blood Artist after the token player quits, and speaking of tokens, Shadrick's Silver Quill comes into play. Chose us for something there. Oh, it was the plus counters on this, and then he must have chosen himself to draw a card and lose a life. I wasn't keeping track of how many cards he had in hand. So this thing, now a 4-4. And we draw into Murderous Rider, not going to use that before we shuffle, so allow the puzzle box to resolve. Glad that I played it now, because we weren't going to be getting into the white mana we need, apparently. And we're still not, so I'm doubly glad that we went for it. Liliana not quite as good as we need it to be. We're not getting into any zombies in the zombie deck somehow. So we'll just drop the 3-tree city, because we have to be conscious of what we give up on every single turn with the puzzle box. Let's go for the talisman as well. It's not even a white talisman. And we can't play the Void Rend either, so Yeah, once again we're just passing and hoping that we don't get battered. Land tax has been triggering and he's got a couple of planes available to him, I think. They've got different artwork, so we just went for the 1 planes this time, which I'm sure we'll see played this turn. No, he played a basic swamp into the Carney Heart Expedition, so that has the correct number of counters on it now. No idea what that is. A Carbal Ghoul. At the beginning of each end step, put a plus counter on it for each creature that died this turn. And then activates the Pious Evangel, so sacrifices the Brawn to give stuff trample. If this thing gets a bunch of plus counters on it, then it might become a threat, but it's going to be pretty slow, although it does trigger at the beginning of each end step. That transforms this as well, so cares about creatures you control dying, and is another aristocrat effect. Sacks the Carney Heart Expedition for a couple of forests, and at the end of the turn this will get a plus counter, so a 2-2 with trample. Shadrick's going straight through to combat, and again targets us, so it's a plus counter, and he went up to 7 cards in hand, so once again I'll assume it's the card draw he's after. Haven't seen any Inkling tokens yet. 2-3 with Flying and Double Strike to the left. And we see another Soul Sister. Oriot Champion has Pearl Black and Red, which is noteworthy. And another one. The Essence Warden. That triggers on every creature that enters on any side of the battlefield as well. So they gain 3 life per creature that enters now. And another one. So that puzzle box is getting them into all the bits they want. They just need a means of draining us per life they gain at this point, so make that 4 life per creature that enters. We lose a life and get another plus counter on the only zombie we've seen so far. See if we draw into a white mana ready to shuffle here. Again we don't. That is the Wizard Mentor. So shuffle 3 or 4 cards away now. And finally get into the Flooded Strand. So we were a million miles away from actually doing something. Flooded Strand into our commander. Hopefully we see that Windfall sometime soon. And that enters, so triggers the Soul Sisters. Get the Headless Rider down for 1 mana as well. And then I do want to loot here, even though it's probably not a good idea to be swinging in, although for all the creatures they're not likely to be swinging back at us unless they can start buffing a lot with Shadricks. So let's go for an attack at the Soul Sisters player, who probably attacks back in at us with the dragon, but he's the threat, so we'll go in that way. And we do gain lifelink on the thing now because it's so big, so it was worth not blocking with it. Back with the Krenko. Draw and discard a card, thanks to our commander. And that is a Corpse Augur, is going to be worth having in play, so I think we give up on the land here. +1/+1 on our zombies, only the attacker matters here. Okay, oh, of course, blocks with the protection from black I'm already forgetting about, so we won't gain the life. That's annoying, losing out on 7 life. But we can still go for the Corpse Augur here for 2 mana. I think I will go for the Talisman, just so that we can cast whatever it is that we draw into. This does mean that we just draw next turn and then shuffle the thing away immediately to the puzzle box, but whatever, we don't exactly have a lot of control over what we draw into anyway. And we might draw more into the Corpse Augur at some point. At least we've finally started managing to get zombies into play. Thalia and the Gitrog monster into play for the first time. So that's going to bring our lands and creatures intact. Expedition map is going to tutor for a land, I think. Does the land go into hand? Yeah, I thought it did. I thought he'd already made a land for the turn, but maybe he hasn't. Reveals to us a Westvale Abbey. He's going to lose that if he can't play it here to the puzzle box. Yeah, he goes through to the end step, so that was a waste of a tutor for the expedition map. And the Bilbo player is up to 100 life, just needs 11 more. Sacrifices to Plumb the Forbidden. He got rid of Wall of Blossoms and the Blood Artist, so triggers Blood Artist a few times, but more importantly, we'll draw more cards. Managed to get himself into a Sol Ring, 5 cards left in hand. Need to start looking at the number of cards or creature cards in each player's graveyard, because this can target any player. So there's 2 over here that we could draw with the 2 creatures there. Slaughter Specialist, you don't see too much of, comes in tapped. Each opponent creates a human token, and it can get plus counters on it. Obviously gains a bunch of life as well. Yeah, we missed out on gaining life with this thing because our opponent over here now has first strike and trample in the way, so we can't attack in over there either. If we can get into swords or something, it might be worth getting rid of this so that we can start attacking this way. Anyway, when the tokens enter, it makes a bunch more life for our opponent, so he's up to 125 life, which means he can now activate the Bilbo, which I've never seen before. As many years as this has been out, I've never seen the deck go off this well. It's probably thanks to the puzzle box and drawing so many cards. So can now search for any number of creatures and put them onto the battlefield. We'll see if he, in Abzan, has a means of haste or just winning straight up with a combo. They will come in tapped, don't forget, even if they do have haste, thanks to the Thalia, so that might save us here. So we'll see if he crashes the client here with a bajillion Soul Sisters triggers. See if we can look at the creatures in play before the client does crash. So there's an Azusa, 4 cards in hand, Bloom Tender, Disciple of Fraelis can draw more cards, Exemplar of Light will draw cards as well, Grey Merchant of Asphodel, if he's got devotion, I don't think he's got that much devotion to black, but that'll drain us more. Griswold for more tokens, Kambal makes copies of tokens, Steve, Tribe Scout gets more lands in from hands, Sangromancer's going to gain a lot of life, Selvala will gain a decent amount of life and mana, Sky Shroud Ranger for additional lands, Stoneforge Mystic, tutors and equipment, Tireless Tracker is landfall to get clue tokens, Wall of Omens cantrips, Weathered Wayfarer can tutor up lands, and Windborn Muse is a prison effect. Okay, so he's eventually getting all the triggers on the stack here. He's at 125 before Grey Merchant goes off, and that bumps him up to 141, so we're down to 20. Abzan players down to 24. I'm not auto-yielding here, so if I lose a lot of time on my clock, it's because I'm trying to keep the client from balking. Stoneforge Mystic searches for that equipment, a Skull Clamp, so that'll go into hand. They've still got mana up, and it would have been useful if our opponent had put all the Soul Sisters triggers on the stack together so that we could just auto-yield to all of them one at a time, because if I try to yield to all of them here, that might actually help. If this is going to trigger on every life gain, then we could not yield to that, but yield to all of the Soul Sisters triggers. That will probably be a good idea. We'll just have to pass through the Exemplar of Light manually. For anyone who doesn't know, Magic Online, if you get this many triggers on the stack and try to auto-yield to all of them, it just totally screws the client. So I'll just have to manually pass through the Exemplar of Light a million times now. And so it's noteworthy now that this is a 52-52 with Disciple of Fraelis on the stack, so they could sacrifice here and draw pretty much their entire deck, which you wouldn't have thought they'd want to do. Okay, they did decide to do that, so sacrificing that, they've got 59 cards in hand, 4 left in the library, 4 mana available. Plays a Reliquary Tower as his land for the turn to give him no max hand size, and drains us for 1 with Kambal, with landfall and the clue token entering. Has multiple land drops a turn with Azusa, so Field of the Dead as well, to gain even more life. The token enters and drains us with Kambal again, but here's where starting to put plus counters on his army might become more relevant, and we get another, and they get another clue token on landfall, so draining us down to 17. They're at 248 life now. Noteworthy, if we draw into Windfall, we can make them lose the game here, as well as draw ourselves a bunch of cards. But that's going to be a tall order. I don't know, do you shuffle with this? No, you just put it on the bottom. I'm not sure if we've shuffled since we put Windfall on the bottom, I can't remember. Anyway, they get landfall again with an Exploration, and play themselves a Thespian Stage. We don't have to worry about fetches at least, because they do come in tapped. Thalia doing some work here. Elephant Grass. Black creatures can't attack you, that's pretty good against both of his opponents. And now finally getting through to the combat phase, so Shadrix might go for the plus counters, ready for next turn here. It's noteworthy that I did ask for a casual game with no game changer cards, so I think that's really helped us along here to get a more interesting game, even if we have been stomped so far. Just didn't get into the zombies quickly enough. Plus counters, and it looks like Inklings over here, I assume. Yeah, so hands the Inkling over, which means he gets an Inkling himself with the Kambal. And obviously a bunch more life gain as well. How many creatures are in the bin over here now? Only 3, but if they do attack us we can throw this underneath something. Try and get into some means of drawing cards, but they think better of it and just pass the turn. So Cabal Ghoul is going to get some counters maybe? Not sure anything died. One thing died apparently, so 1 counter on there. And each player gets a plant token to the Griswold at the end of the turn, which means it's even more triggers. It's a good job that Blood Gas was sacrificed previously. So basically we are hoping for a wheel at this point, which is unlikely. Chances are we draw into a wheel and then shuffle it away with the Teferi's puzzle box. And hopefully we can finally get round to our turn here, which I'm sure will do nothing for us, but we'll give it a whirl. So we start the turn at 12 thanks to the Dreadhorde invasion. Not sure that life gain would have made a difference in the end anyway. So happy to get rid of an Orzhov Signet. Temmet will trigger on any card draw, including at the draw step. And that draws us into Noxious Ghoul. Problem is, that won't do anything for us. It might have done something without the plus counters from the Shadrix. Now really what the Abzan player should do is allow us to get down Noxious Ghoul, take out some creatures, and then even swing in with Corpse Augur, and yeah, maybe get rid of Corpse Augur, allow us to draw into an answer, and killing that off will get a zombie down as well, and get rid of pretty much, well, not their entire board, but a lot of it. Pretty much our only way out, I'm assuming, because Thalia doesn't know what he's going to draw into, unless he has an instant speed answer here. I have asked the Abzan player if he'll block me, but I'm not sure if he's actually going to answer here. The problem is if he doesn't answer, I have to have this card in hand to discard it to Temmet, just in case we get into a card we'd rather have. Okay, he has just said that he will, so in that case I will get down the Noxious Ghoul and risk losing out on a good card with Temmet, because then we'll draw into more cards with the Corpse Augur and hopefully be able to do something. So play the Noxious Ghoul is going to be -1/-1 on the non-zombies. Gains our opponent a bunch of life as usual. There is an aristocrat effect over here, but I can't remember if there's anything this way. I'm hoping there isn't an aristocrat effect that I'm forgetting about. I don't think there is. Anyway, all non-zombies get -1/-1. And that is a bunch of counters on the Griswold. It's Drain with the Disciple, a lot of life gain with Sangromancer, plus counters on the Slaughter Specialist. We don't really need to worry about at this point, because we're dead either way next turn. He's going to go north of 300 life here. Or not quite, goes to 295, and then he'll lose the 3 from the Disciple. So I think we need to try and gain some life from this. We're about 7 life short of what we should be. So I'm hoping that that doesn't come back to haunt us here. We'll try and draw some cards to the Corpse Augur. We can only go to the left. So we'll draw and discard, just discard the card that we draw into immediately. We're looking to wipe the board anyway, so I'm hoping that the Thalia and Gitrog doesn't feel slighted by us swinging in at this. We're giving him another option. We're giving him another option to block here. I'm hoping that he blocks this thing. Anointed Procession wouldn't help us anyway, so good to see the back of that. That's +1/+1 on our creatures. And we did discard a card, so it's another 3 life gained from the Sangromancer. An underplayed card, that one. You will gain a lot of life from this thing. So yeah, I'm hoping that he just chump blocks this, because we're looking to pretty much wipe the board anyway. And then this thing will die for a card draw. So he is, yeah, allowing us to draw with Thalia. That's the right move for both of us. And then giving up on the Aristocrat is good. That means that we're not as likely to be drained out. So that's first strike damage, which could be relevant here actually. It means that we're going to gain more life to this. Make a token, and then we'll lose life and draw cards. We have one creature, so it's definitely this player that we aim at. Like I said before, a wheel will take care of this guy. And we just draw into a bunch of lands, okay. In that case, did we just go for the cycle lands, which I've kept in the deck on purpose here? I don't think it matters if we gain 1 extra life. So let's just allow all this to resolve. We at least get another zombie to enter, so there's going to be another trigger on this thing. They will get a zombie as well from Kambal, which drains us again. Going to gain a lot more life from the Soul Sisters before they go down. But I'm sure they've drawn into means of reanimation now, with only 4 cards left in the library. If they're so reliant on these Soul Sisters, you would assume that they have a means of keeping them in play. We've done alright controlling the stack so far and making sure that the client doesn't bug out on us. Noxious Ghoul now resolving, so maybe he's got a means of protecting his board with clever concealment or something like that. He has no mana held up. Yeah, he's tapping down his white creatures. This looks like clever concealment to me. And there it is. So permanents you control phase out. So unless Thalia can get a massive bump next turn, it's not likely that we're going to get rid of this guy. Never know, we might have a wheel on top that we can still make use of. And it was a long shot when he had all those cards in hand. So luckily leaving this thing at 1 toughness, so we can still kill it off with this as a 13/13 lifelink. And there we go, up to 21. Each opponent is drained for 1 by the Disciple on the way out. And we've only got 1 more shot here with the Fetid Pools. I'll play the land just in case the client decides to play the Fetid Pools as a land when I click on it. So cycling, let's make a bunch of blue mana with the 3-tree city, making sure to hold up double white just in case, but we need blue mana for any wheel that we might get into. There's that renewed solidarity again, so that's just going to make us another zombie token. Never know, Thalia and Gitrog might be able to do something, so I'll play the renewed solidarity, but that's all we've got. The deck managed to do a bit of something towards the end here at least, just been way too slow like I said. Like I also said, Bilbo, I've never seen it go off before, so I'll be more than happy to upload this video. The enchantment sees the zombie token we made previously and makes another one, which would have been another trigger on the Noxious Ghoul, but when these creatures are phased out, it doesn't matter. We did get rid of his Thalia, which I'm hoping wasn't a means of him winning the game, or at least taking this guy out with commander damage. I wouldn't have thought he'd be able to do that. The Fecundity, whenever a creature dies, its controller may draw a card. Seen that a bit too late, unfortunately. And Forsaken Wastes, players can't gain life. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player loses 1 life. So again, we're seeing that too late as well, unfortunately. I'm assuming that he's only just drawn into it. No, of course he's only just drawn into it because of the Teferi's puzzle box, so yeah, we're drawing into our stuff too late, and Bilbo drew into all of his stuff exactly at the right time. He played like 3 Soul Sisters in 1 turn, I think, so it's gone absolutely perfectly for him. But looks like there's nothing to do here, so we will see Bilbo win the game here, hopefully, pretty soon. Making Thespian Stage a copy of the Field of the Dead for some reason. And then Sakura Tribe Scout. He's got plenty of lands to make this turn. So that is 3 Field of the Dead triggers on landfall. He got down Vesuva as well. So 3 fields in play. That is... that's a numbo actually, because this is one of the old school world abilities, so it cares about a zombie entering on any side of the battlefield. Now, he's got all those cards in hand, he probably has swords or something to deal with this, but he could take out his own army here if he doesn't have a means of getting rid of the Noxious Ghoul. But there's something that we've learned, is Field of the Dead on your opponent's side of the field can help you out with this thing. He's not doing anything about it with the other Field of the Dead trigger on the stack, so he is allowing Noxious Ghoul to go on again, which means he's got some 1 toughness creatures that are going to go down here. Griswold is a 10/10 trampler, which is noteworthy, so if he has tokens die, then that thing will get buffed up. And now he's holding priority with the Noxious Ghoul on the stack, so maybe he has something planned all along. And there's Fecundity. Unfortunately, it is a May ability, so I thought for a second there he might have forced himself to draw, but no, unfortunately not. He can say no to this. It's noteworthy that he's still debuffing his creatures, so we might be able to survive a swing back thanks to that life gain. And that means that we could draw into Fecundity and maybe do something next turn still. This is all during the upkeep, he hasn't even drawn for the turn yet. Looks as though there's going to be another -1/-1, unless he doesn't let Field of the Dead resolve before the Noxious Ghoul's taken out. I can't believe that he doesn't have any spot removal. Although now I think he would only lose the Stoneforge Mystic is the only 1 toughness I'm seeing. Oh no, he'd lose Azusa as well. So yeah, more fecundity triggers, another Cabal drain. Noteworthy the elephant grass is still in play. He did pay the cumulative upkeep on that, but we're not likely to take him out with combat anyway. But his ranks have been thinned out quite a lot. He needs to be careful making landfall. He loses Sangromancer and his Disciple of Freya-Lys. He'd lose the Windborn Muse if he plays another land. In fact, he'd get landfall 3 times, wouldn't he? So he'd lose pretty much all of his creatures if he makes a land again. Okay, so the Teferi's Puzzle Box triggers. They've got 53 cards in hand and 3 in the deck. So they're just going to do a little bit of a juggle around, basically. They have to manually select all the cards that are in their hand. Shadrix on the stack. Shadrix currently has 0 power. Probably he might be able to take one of us out if he dedicates it all into the board. There's an Inkling and a plus counter, so we'll assume again the Inkling is coming in over here. So once again makes an Inkling with Cabal, but he doesn't have any Soul Sisters in play at the moment. Drains us with Cabal as well, so 15 and 16 life. And just decides to take one player out, that is us. So we've got 2 damage in the air we can't do anything about. This is an 8/8 we probably have to block. So it's 2, 6. This we probably have to block, so we'll figure that out later. 7, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, he's probably got us here. And these are 4/4s, so that's 8 alone. So we'll block the 8/8 with 1 toughness. And the 9/9 Trampler with 4 toughness, but probably still takes us out here, like I said. Now, it's a shame. It would have been interesting to get one more turn there. I don't think we would have done anything, but like I said, it would have been interesting there. He definitely wants rid of the Noxious Ghoul before he plays any more lands into the Field of the Deads. I suppose I could have looked out. I don't think there was any first strike damage we could have blocked there. We could have tried to get into something with Fecundity. Yeah, we go down to -13 with the triggers on the stack. You never know. The Abzan player might be able to wipe the board and then just wait it out 3 turns. That's all he has to do ultimately. Assuming that the Abzan player is just playing with his food and doesn't have some kind of combo available to him. He's definitely above 300 life now. And some creatures will have died there. I suppose I could have tried to kill off some creatures, seeing as how I wasn't going to survive anyway, and that would have put more counters on this just in case it's relevant, but with 300 and odd life it's not going to be. Maybe there's some kind of infect he can get through though. Anyway, plays another land into 3 triggers on Field of the Dead, which would have likely wiped his board out had we have stayed in play. So that is more drains with Cabal. Azusa has gone down now, so if that's 2 lands for the turn, then Exploration should be the only additional land drop he's got, I think. No, he did have another one somehow. He's got his own Urborg now that he's lost out on ours. So Coffers is still online. Explore allows him into another land. I'm just assuming that he's trying to drain his opponent out here. I'm surprised he doesn't have a means of another Aristocrat effect with a sack outlet, if this is what he's aiming to do. We've only seen the Blood Artist so far, but he seems to be totally reliant on the Cabal making tokens. So he might be able to give Thalia another chance here. A Plague of Vermin. Each player may pay any amount of life and repeat the process until no one pays life. Create rats equal to each 1 life paid. Now I think Cabal is just whenever 1 or more tokens. Yeah, so they quit there. They shouldn't have done. I mean, if you make 100 rats with this, you still only lose 1 life to the Cabal. And yeah, they were playing with their food there, so I would have played it out. If you played it out that long, you might as well see it through to the end, but it's likely Thalia and Gitrog was going down anyway. So I think that was an interesting one. It wasn't particularly a good showing for us, but we just didn't get into zombies in the zombie deck for a little while somehow. Managed to do a bit of something in the end though. There were some interesting interactions in that game, and hopefully you all got some enjoyment from it as well. Be sure to consider leaving a like and a subscribe, and massive thank you to those of you on Patreon who support financially. You can do so yourself via the link in the description below. As ever, I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.